Tara VanDerveer will raise the trophy for a third time in her illustrious Hall of Fame career.
Thank you, the Hall of Fame, for honoring my life's work.
She's a legend, and she's the greatest of all time.
Tara VanDerveer has the record.
With win 1,203, Tara VanDerveer surpasses legendary coach Mike Krzyzewski.
Everything we're doing, we just need to pick up the intensity.
Let's really spread out. Let's try to get ourselves running a little bit.
With the first pick in the 2012 WNBA draft,
the Indiana Fever select Lexi Hull,
Cameron Brink, Shanae Agumake from Stanford University.
Coaching is teaching. It's really trying to help people go to a place they can't go by themselves. There were no organized sports for girls, and it was why. You know, it was so frustrating, and it was so painful not to be able to play when the boys had a 7th grade team, an 8th grade team, a 9th grade team.
Our challenge in the game is not to necessarily beat the other team. The other team is there to help us be a great team. It's to be the best team we can be.
This is a real privilege for me. I'm a Stanford girl, Stanford alum. So, Tara, we have to talk about the jacket.
I had to wear it.
Yeah. So let's please tell everybody about the jacket. What's on there, what it represents to you.
Well, Nike surprised me with this jacket when our team won a game last year, and it set the record for the most wins. And so it's a tally jacket, so each mark is a tally of a victory, which was 1,203 at the time.
So every single mark there represents a win.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's on the back and the front.
Yeah.
So it's. I've been at it a long time.
I think Kim Mulkey doesn't have one of those, and neither does Don Staley.
It is one of a kind.
Yes,
that's true.
Right. And that number represented the all-time record for victories at the time, male or female.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. So that's the coat.
Thank you.
It's a collector's item. Someday I'm going to lobby for that thing to be in the Smithsonian. So, Tara, let's tell people, what was your starting salary as a coach?
Well, the first job I had actually was helping coaching my sister's team, and I just got free room and board at my parents' house. But after that, I was a graduate assistant, and I volunteered my first year, $3,500 my second year, and as a head coach, $13,000.
13,000, yeah. Can you pull your coat away from there? Yeah, just so.
Sure, is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and what were you making in your last year before you retired?
It was a lot more. I think that the going rate probably was about $3 million for top coaches.
So 13,000 to 3 million. Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk about that arc. What the hell happened?
Well, you know, I've been really fortunate to be a part of I had great timing for coaching and horrible timing for playing. I think that people have recognized the value of women's sports, the value of participation. You listen to Christine say she was an athlete, and so many very successful C-suite women are athletes because it teaches you things. And I think that then our society in some ways has valued it. Title IX was the driving force of it, and I was really fortunate to have that opportunity to coach.
All right, let's talk about teaching, because you've always considered yourself a teacher. What have you been teaching all these years? I used to ask Pat Summitt this question too.
Right.
What is it you're really teaching? Because it's more than basketball, right?
I think the number one lesson I want to get across to our team is be a great teammate. You know, it's not about your individual success. I use the analogy of an orchestra that different players have a great night, one night, But it's really important that everyone is excited for other people's success when you're part of a team. And I guess that being a great teammate is the thing that I work the hardest on teaching.
So the collective, the ability to collaborate. You've used some interesting tools, right? Like the orchestra thing always fascinated me. I mean, one of the things about Tara, as long as I've known Tara, she's always been doing something on the side besides coaching. One year she was training for triathlons, but you also took classical piano.
I did.
But you've used music with your teams, have you not?
Well, as a young girl, I played the flute, and I thought I was really good, actually. I had a great teacher, and then I had a teacher during the year. I had a great summer teacher, and then during the year, my teacher actually made me physically ill going to the lessons. So I laid down the flute. I just told my parents I could not take from this teacher, but I quit the flute not knowing it was just the teacher that made me sick. And it was hard because I think she was, a great flutist and everything, but I never did it well enough. So she wasn't encouraging or positive with me, and I learned that kind of the hard way. But then I wanted to take piano, and I thought I could teach myself, and after 2 weeks, that didn't work. And I got a great teacher, and I was making CDs in a year. I was really enjoying it. I would go to my lesson. If I hadn't practiced, she'd say, let's just play duets. And she got me. And it was, I used the quote that she took me to a place I couldn't get by myself because she was such a great teacher. And I knew she cared about me, and that was something really special. And I think as a coach, that was different for me because I was a head coach when I was 22 years old, and now I was a student, and so it really helped me be a better coach.
Yeah. When you just first decided to get into the coaching business, your dad gave you a piece of advice, right, about going into a man's business?
Well, my dad actually, when I was growing up, I was a basketball junkie. I loved playing all the time, and there were no sports for girls, any teams before Title IX. And my parents said to me, in the 9th grade, Tara, come in and do your homework. Basketball is never going to take you anywhere. And I was like, I knew algebra wasn't taking me anywhere, but I loved basketball so much. And when I did go into basketball coaching, my dad said, it's going to be very challenging, but it's, as a man, in a man's world, he just said, you're going to have to do things twice as well. And then he said, but that's not hard. So, and that was my dad's way of, I think, encouraging me.
Yeah.
My dad also had a lot of sayings, but he did not want me to take the Stanford job, which I took. I took it, and I called him, and I said, I'm thinking about it. And he gave me all the reasons why I shouldn't go to Stanford. And he said, it's a graveyard job. And I said, Dad, it's a gold mine job. It involves digging, but it's a gold mine job. And I'm glad I was right about that. But he hung up the phone and said to my mother, she will be unemployed, coming home, living with us in 3 months. So I've done all right, 40 years.
What made you feel that way about it?
About going to Stanford?
Yeah.
I love the idea of the combination of great academics and great academics and athletics. That to me was the ultimate challenge. I loved my job at Ohio State. We had great players, but Stanford to me was the ultimate challenge. And I did it for myself to see, can I compete at the highest level? And I thought that helped me prove it I could.
We were talking backstage, and you said, look, it's a competitive world. Like, you have to learn skills, right? Mm-hmm. So when you were coaching these kids, what are some of the skills? What were you trying to get across to them that was going to help them, not just on the court, but going out into the working world?
I've had so many players, this always cracks me up. I'll have so many players come back and say to me, Tara, do you remember when you said this to me? That was 20 years ago. I'm like, hell no, I don't remember saying that to you. But it's what, coaches and teachers and parents, what you say, they remember. And what I want, so I want to make sure that I really give them the message of being resilient. I think grit is the number one thing that I want our team to have, is that you get back up. And I was so interested to hear, earlier talking about talking about failure, how that's such a great kind of almost necessary tool to have. And we had a dad that used to tell me, Tara, every disappointment is a blessing. Just to learn from your mistakes and to get better and just have that grit and resilience. And I guess, I don't know, somehow I got that. I feel like I don't get discouraged easily. And that's what I try to help communicate to our team and to our players. You know, just stay with things, keep playing hard. And I just remember like games where we're down 26 in the first half, nothing's going right. And all of a sudden we just get a press going and we turn it around and we end up winning the game by 18. Yeah. You know, or I just love the players I coach. And we're playing Notre Dame. We're down at halftime 17, nothing's going right. And I'm going to the locker room, and one of the players, her name is Bird, runs by me, and the coaches, we're talking about, oh my God, this is awful. And she goes, we got him right where we want him. And I'm like, what the heck game is she at, you know? And so I got in the locker room, and I said the same thing. I said, we got him right where we want him. Who's going to guard Enrique, who she had 25 already, you know? And it was like, well, yeah. We ended up, you know, winning the game, and it was so exciting that the game ended up on the last play when Enrique was taking the shot and Bird comes back and blocks it, and we go to the Final Four. So, you know, just not to be discouraged, just to keep working hard.
Yeah. You coached the '96 Olympic team, really a historical legacy team, right? Because it propelled two pro leagues into existence, the ABL and the WNBA, which there was only one survivor of that. But take us through that year, because you took a leave of absence from Stanford. I mean, that was an extraordinary experience, and you had to be fairly resilient early on with that team, right?
Well, we had lost in the World Championships, and it kind of came back to 2 years later. Brazil had beaten us. We were on the same bus as Brazil. They're partying in the front of the bus, and we're sitting in the back like, oh, our teeth were grinding, or saying worse. But I took a year off. I was introduced as the Olympic coach this way. This is not about bronze. This is not about silver. This is about gold, Tara VanDerveer. So I knew what the job was. And we were going to train all year. And so August 4th, 1995, which was 1 year before the '96 Olympics, I went for a run in California, and I run up the hill, and I get in the shower, and I'm like, oh my God, what if we're not in that game? And I kind of had a panic attack. And so I'm like, get out of the shower. I'm sitting down and said, you know what you're doing. You've got a great team. Get back in the shower and rinse, just do a double rinse of doubt. Get rid of the doubt. And I did. And from then on, I looked forward to that. So I think that in my mind, that was the most important thing I did, was just never doubt what the outcome was going to be, just to really have confidence in that. And the competence first, doing the work. And then we came to Washington, D.C., and we ran with President Clinton. And this was back in the day when before the vegan diet, and he wasn't really in great shape. And they said, one of his assistants said to me, well, now coach, what if the girls can't keep up with him? I was like, we will cut them on the spot, you know, forget it. But you know, we went running, and it was, you know, he slowed down, and he was kind of getting his breath, and then we jogged around. It was just awesome, though. In front of the press, he kind of sped up, and I told our team, let's go. But it was just so thrilling to be, you know, in a circle with him and ask him a question about, you know, what he felt his legacy was as a president. But we also met on the same day. We met the two female Supreme Court justices, and Sandra Day O'Connor's from Stanford. She goes, Tara, I have a surprise for you. I'm thinking, what the heck could this be? I'm like pinching myself, because Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg was on the other side. And she goes, come on, we're going to the third floor. They had a basketball court up there, and the slanted ceiling. She goes, the highest court in the land. And now we're going to play with Lisa Leslie, 6'6", and I'm just hoping Lisa don't block their shot. So, but we really had fun. It was and we won the gold medal. We won undefeated. And just when I was kind of feeling really good about it, I got home, and I didn't have any food, so I went to the store, and I'm getting some oranges, and a woman's looking at me kind of funny, and like, you know how someone knows you? And she goes, now, didn't you just coach the Olympic team to a gold medal yesterday? I said, yeah. She goes, you're shorter than I thought. And so I was like,
we've talked about, for a lot of young women, confidence is an issue. Mm-hmm. So how would you deal with that as a coach?
I don't really like the word confidence. I like competence, and just, you know, really working hard I like, you know, get in the gym early, you know, not reading the press clippings, but just getting better every day. And I really like to go to the gym, turn up the music, and have fun. You know, sports I think should be really fun, and I want to keep it fun for people so that they really like to play. But you know, there are times where, like, I know that I had that kind of just a little bit of a quote, you know, message to myself in the shower. And we had a young lady at Stanford who was a good player, not a great player, but she was a good player. And we struggled. We lost a game, and she was a senior, and she was all really crying. And so I said, you know, hey, how about reading this book, The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale? You know, just help her self-confidence. And she comes out, and she'd been really kind of an average player, and we play in the tournament, and she becomes the MVP of this tournament. And I'm like patting myself on the back thinking, wow, that was a great idea, giving her that book. And my assistant coach said, Tara, if you were so smart, you would have given her that book her freshman year.
So it was difficult to get, like, you couldn't recruit the types of players always that you wanted, right? Tell the crowd about having your annual meetings with admissions.
Well, Stanford is a wonderful place, and I knew it was a kind of a challenge of, you know, who can get in. That was why my dad didn't want me to go to Stanford. He just thought, you won't get, you know, great talent. I said, Dad, we just need 3 or 4 a year. But I would sit with our dean of admissions, and she would look at transcripts and, nope, that's not happening. What were you thinking about that one? And it's challenging, but you know, I think that I think education is so important, and Stanford isn't for everyone, but it is for certain people that really want that combination. But I loved coaching the Olympic team, and everyone didn't go to Stanford, and I loved coaching Ohio State and Idaho, where I was, and just you know, the excitement of the game and the combination of great academics and athletics, I think, is really really important.
As a mentor, what did you learn over the years was the most important quality in a leader? If you could, what are the most important qualities that you think that, first of all, that you acquired and that you were trying to transmit to your student leaders? Well, I just think it's really caring about the people that you work with, that they know that you really care about them and that you're about them. You know, there's a lot of different quotes, but I think that one that stands out to me is you don't have to be a leader to serve, but you have to serve to be a leader. And I don't necessarily like to be the center of attention. I like to have great assistant coaches. I don't have to be the smartest one in the room, which I never am. But it's like, but it's how are you doing today? You know, and how can I help you be the best that you can be? How can I help you achieve your goals? And that's the pleasure of coaching, is to see people, you know, take their game to the next level. And I use the analogy of going up on the high wire. You know, if I'm asking someone to shoot that free throw with no time on the clock in front of, you know, 15,000 people, I'm asking you to go up on that high wire, and I'm your net, and just you know, believe that I'm going to be there for them, and that they can trust me. So the trust, the caring, the fact that you have their back, and you know, just and I think optimism and enthusiasm. You know, I love what I do. I love every day. Being here with you is so special, and it's something I really appreciate. And just like the same thing with our team. I think it's a really underestimated quality. There's so much clinical study that shows where leadership fails, like what are the derailers for leaders, and it's when people don't trust the intention of the leader, apparently.
Well, I think that you have to be authentic, and you have to be yourself, and that's one thing I haven't had a whole lot of trouble with. I feel like this is who I am. I want to do a great job. I want to help our team be the best that we can be, working with people individually, and that's not to say that there aren't, you know, bumps in the road. I've had to have conversations with assistant coaches that this isn't working, and you know, I'm going to stay. You need to leave, and those are hard. I've had, you know, tough conversations with players, but I think more than anything, it's the caring. That at the bottom line, my parents had a rule where we could not go to bed at night mad at anyone in our family, and I'm one of 5, and I have a brother that, well, that was hard. I mean, really. But you know, just the caring and the real the relationships that I have of the players that I've coached are so incredibly special, and I've learned so much more from them, I think, than they've learned from me. I just had one player I'll tell you about. One player I asked, she was a walk-on, hardly played, I said, you know, what's your contribution to our team? She said, spread sunshine. We won a national championship. And that's what I hope that I can do too.
Yeah. You know, I mentioned out here that, you know, you did it for 38 years. 35 of those years, you didn't get what you wanted, right?
Well, you know, I think that I did get what I wanted. I don't know that we always won a national championship, but, you know, you can't say that every year you're bring your A game, but I just have to look in the mirror. I don't keep anything. I have championship rings. I couldn't even tell you where they are, but I never kept any of the nets that we cut down. I gave them to the players on our team and assistants, but I have great memories. A coach doesn't get a gold medal when you win the Olympics, so it only goes to the players, but I would disagree. I would say that, you know, winning is not what I was about. We did win, and that was great because I didn't get fired, but it was more about when one of our players called me 1 hour after she had her first child. You know, it's like, that's why I do it.
Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, you did it better than anybody in history. So, you know,
when I retired, it was, but that was never what it was for.
Yeah.
But I do like the jacket. It's cool.
You know, to me, it's just such a lesson in the winning has to be the byproduct, right? The hardware has to be the byproduct. If it's, I don't think you could possibly do it resiliently if you were hanging your hat on the victories day in and day out, right? Because it was too.
I don't remember a single score of a game. I mean, it's not that was not, but I can, you know, I mean, I remember players' birthdays. You know, I remember other things, and you know, just I loved going to the gym and, you know, just watching players improve and have them be able to do things and have them come back and say, you know, Tara, I learned this and I remember this and this has really helped me in my career. Yeah. And I still kind of continue to coach them, you know, yeah. So.
It seems like what really engages all the great coaches I've known is not so much the winning, but what it calls up of the discipline of your own internal process, you know? Like you say, the ability to look in the mirror and know you did it in a way that you can live with, right?
Right, and I think, you know, I guess I always wanted my parents to be proud of me. So, like your dad, you know, you look to people that your mentors or your parents or your teachers, and you know, I want to do it right by them. And my younger sister's a basketball coach too, and so I want to make sure I'm a great example for her.
You told me one time that you would look at your players and think about your sister, right?
Right. Well, I started coaching. My parents, I went home. I ran out of money after college. I wanted to take a year off. I ran out of money. I went home at Christmas. They were excited I was home, but after about a week later, my dad said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I thought I was just going to hang out and, you know, come down for dinner when you called." And he's like, "Oh, no. They just passed Title IX. My younger sister, 5 years younger, was playing basketball, and I was going to go coach her team. They had lost the night before 99-11. I was not that excited about this, but I did. And when I came home, I learned 2 important lessons. The first night, my sister, I love my sister, but she was never in the driveway practicing. And when we got home, my mom said, "How come you didn't play Marie more?" I'm like, "Mom, Marie can't shoot, you know, and she doesn't play defense." And my parents were like, "But she's so nice." And one thing is, parents are delusional. They're not realistic at all. But I loved my sister, and everyone on a team is someone's sister. And if there might be times where I might want to just, you know, strangle a player just because they were doing exactly the wrong thing that we practiced 100 times. But, you know, you just remind yourself that is someone's sister, and to, you know, really make sure that you care about each person that you coach. And I don't have to like every single player, but I have to love them, and I do.
It's a great place to leave the conversation. So.
Thank you. Thanks, Sally.
Thank you. All right.